Toronto Islands, located 4 kilometers south of Toronto, is a chain of islands that hold many fun things, from airports to amusement parks and even ancient indigenous healing grounds. It's by far one of the, if not the most popular tourist recreation joints in all of Toronto, if not all of Ontario. Yeah, I'm challenging you, Niagara Falls, Ontario. But with fun times and locations comes not so fun times in a location. Here at the Islands of T.O., as these 15 land masses holds a history that weighs on the fun of fancy boating, artist muses, nice looking hotels, and sweet sports stadiums, against that of frightening floods, fires, demolitions, moving to the mainland, old land curses by the Mississaugas, and also murder. Join me as I think I delved into the right person's murder of the first lighthouse keeper of Gibraltar Point Lighthouse. King of the Canadian Hill, make a murder in our Ontario. I was worried I wasn't going to be able to locate the likes of Joanna Dodge Durnan in the busy as all hell 24-hour Tim Hortons on Bathurst Street, just off Lakeshore Boulevard West. But there she was in her mint Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team winter jacket and toque, as she correctly described herself as to what she was going to be wearing in order for me to locate her in person for the coffee chat. Texting away on her mobile device, focused solely on that and nothing else, only to stop for a second or two to sip on her Timmy's double small coffee. As I cleared my throat as an attempt to grab her attention as to not frighten her as my introduction, I wanted to have the introductionary of the curious KOTCH, you see, to warmly start things off. With the throat clearing activated, Joanna quickly put her hand up in the air to form a halt sign in an effort to stop me in my tracks of my plan of action, and continued to type away, only then to say, "There, done. Now my attention is to you, young man. Not bad, eh? This old bag here," pointing to herself with 2 thumbs, "is not too shabby with the tech of the kiddos." I didn't know how to answer that, so I simply said, Mrs. Dodge Durnan, tell me the tale of the murder of J.P. Raidmiller. And for some odd reason she laughed and replied, "Raidmiller, eh? Okay, here it is." Gibraltar Point Lighthouse was built with the finest of quarried Kingston stones in 1800 to an impressive height of 16 meters, with a bottom end that stretches 7 meters of girth, and the top being that of a cute 2 meters only, as a way to stop ships from running aground in and around the islands close to York, Toronto, and also spot enemy fleets like the Yankees, Americans. 'Tis was an instrument to the safety of human lives on shore, as well as to the vessels that carried them. It was that of only one life, and one life of that was to be accountable in the demand of that safety of dangers of the high seas of safety. It was that of the lighthouse keeper of Gibraltar Point, and that keeper of lights went by the name of J.P. John Paul Raidmiller. Why did Joanna giggle every time I said his name? And to that, J.P. Raidmiller took his task seriously. For 15 years, J.P. saved many a life by keeping the light on for the boys in the boats. So what happens next is a real kick in the poop deck, as Joanna put it. On a cold winter storm evening on January 2nd, 1815, the likes of 2 infantry soldiers that went by the names of Henry Mueller, Irish, and Radin Blue Man, That's one hell of a cool name. That just a few years prior saw death and destruction of their fellow human being during the War of 1812, made their way from Fort York, just a block or two away from where we were having our coffee chat, to the Lighthouse in search of the devil's drink, bootlegged beer, after a good old breaking and entering to burgle the alcohol booty from a place that for all intents and purposes would clearly not have any booze in that secluded area where a lonely man has lived for 15 years. To that fact, the Irishmen were shocked to their core to find that truth, that there was no ale to be found. So they did what naturally, PTSD, came to their war-torn minds when faced with bitter disappointment. And that was to find the lighthouse keeper and chop him up into bits and pieces and bury him all around the lighthouse property, which they did. It wasn't until the year of 1830 when a young child by the name of Georgie Durnan, I wonder if Joanna Dodds Duran is related to him, dug up the many, many, many parts of J.P. Raidmiller and also the murder weapon, an axe. The two accused Irish soldiers stood trial on the basis of they told a few York, Toronto residents that they offed the local lighthouse keeper the very next day, but they were acquitted of the crime. Due to the fact that they had an alibi, they were seen by high-ranking officers to be at Fort York the whole night, thus set free and to be lost in the annals of time and history. Whatever the case may be for JP's killers being innocent or guilty of this horrendous crime, and if I really, really phoned it in on this murder case, I mean, there's just so much to do here on the islands. Do I really want to just sit and or skulk around a lighthouse for hours on end looking for a few jawbone fragments of a murdered dude that happened like 100 years ago? Or do I want to get some sweet, sweet sun on this fake fur body of mine? But one thing is for damn sure. J.P. Raidmiller's ghost haunts the lighthouse and adjacent grounds as a mean-as-hell poltergeist with floating body parts flying about, just like the spirit in that Dead by Daylight video game. And Babe Ruth's first home run ever was hit in Hanlan's Point Stadium. And I'm fully nude. Join me at the clothing-optional Hanlan's Point public beach, if you dare.